G'day guys, how are we? Welcome back to the Boxing Deep Dive channel, and in this episode we are going to go over the 10 best boxing movies of all time and the 10 worst movies of all time. Of course, just according to me. It's just something a little bit different to what I normally do with the real life boxing world. I thought, I was just thinking about this the other day, and I thought just going through different movies, and I thought I'd do this one. So I hope you enjoy it. So as I said, the 10 best boxing movies of all time, in my opinion, and the 10 worst of all time, in my opinion. Now, straight off the bat, just a couple of things. I've had to group a couple of franchises together as far as the movies goes, because if not, they would take up a fair chunk of it. And these ones, I'm going to, bit of disclosure, the Rocky series I'm going to group together because they would literally take up, out of the 20 movies, they would take up 6 of those spots. And also the Creed series, which is what, 3. So between them, there's 9 movies, which is almost half the list of both, so the 10 best and the 10 worst. So I have grouped them together, the Rocky series and the Creed series together. So I know it's a little bit of a technicality, but it's the best way I could do it, because as I said, if I didn't, they would take up half the list, and there's plenty of other great and not so great boxing movies out there. So just thought I'd do that to just to make a little bit more even or level playing field. So just another one. I know I'm going to upset a lot with a couple of my picks, and I'm actually looking forward to it, because as a boxing tragic, let's face it, like a lot of you out there, I get a little bit offended by some of the movies in certain areas, and I'll explain that as we go. But yeah, just a little bit of fun. So I hope you enjoy it, and also give me your feedback, which I'm sure I'll get, for the 10 best and 10 worst of all time, again, in my opinion. Let's start with number 10. This is Requiem for a Heavyweight. Now, this was released in October 1962. It stars Anthony Quinn as Louis the Mountain Rivera. Jackie Gleason is also in it as the manager, Mace Rennick, and Mickey Rooney as the Cut Man. Now, it's like 1962. It's a very old movie. It's a movie that a lot of you might not have seen, but I implore you to check it out. Look, it's not as as flash as a lot of the movie these days, but as Rocky showed, you don't have to have all the effects and money and and budget to make a great movie. So this is pretty much about a washed up boxer, just involved with the mafia, and he gets into professional wrestling, and it's just a little bit complicated to go into, but it's pretty much the fall from grace of a heavyweight boxer and his road to redemption. So it's a really good movie. It's probably, if you check out a lot of the top sort of 10 to 15 movies of all time, it always pretty much gets a spot. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's not, as I said before, it's not a movie full of effects and everything, but just a really good story, and I implore you to watch this movie, Requiem for a Heavyweight. So that comes in at number 10. Number 9, we're going to go to a real life story this time. There's a few of them in there, by the way. I think more than half of the movies in this list are based on true stories. So this is based on the life and times of my favourite fighter of all time. I've got to disclose that as well. Vinny, the Tasmanian Devil, Pazienza. It stars Miles Teller. It was released in September 2016. And I really liked it because, unlike a lot of movies that really can't get it right as far as the fighting scenes go, I thought they actually did a pretty good job with this one. And where they did actually fall down in areas, and it's not easy, I will say, to get the boxing side of things right in these types of movies, because remember, these are actors who are being asked to learn how to box, and it's probably one of my biggest gripes when I watch these movies, that they can't fight and they can't pull off the fighting part of it. But I think Miles Teller did an okay job, but I think it was disguised a lot, or papered over a lot with the lack of the fighting part as far as the story goes. And if you haven't heard the story, of course, Vinny Pazienza from Providence in Rhode Island, went through the lightweight ranks right up to super middleweight, had the broken neck. Just a really, really good story. And unlike a lot of the movies that are about real life boxers. I actually thought this was a really good adaptation, and I implore you to check it out. So released in 2016, didn't do overly great at the box office. But these days, a lot of these boxing movies tend not to, unless it's Rocky or Creed, one of these types of movies. But I really enjoyed this as a movie, just the story and the way it was adapted to the screen, and probably had a little bit more of a soft spot because it was Vinny Pazienza. But again, check it out. Let's go to number 8, and this is really one of my top films. I would have put it a little bit higher, but there's some pretty tight competition out there. This is The Champ. It was released in April 1979. It was starring Jon Voight as boxer Billy Flynn, and also Ricky Schroder as his son TJ. It also had Faye Dunaway in it as his estranged wife Annie. It was released in, as I said, April 1979 on a budget. Did really well on a budget of $8 million and made $65 million at the box office. So a real success story back in the day. And it tells a tale of a broken down ex-boxer and his relationship with his son. As a single father, raising him up. Little TJ, again, played by Ricky Schroder, is there with him along the whole way. And it's a real tearjerker. I will disclose that. I won't give the ending away in case you haven't seen it, but it's a real emotional movie. Again, not with a massive budget. But I think Jon Voight and especially Ricky Schroder did an unbelievable job in this movie. And I challenge you not to shed a tear at the end of it. It's pretty sad. So that is The Champ, released in 1979, and that is number 8. Let's get to number 7. This time it is The Hurricane, starring Denzel Washington, released in September 1999. It tells the story of Reuben Hurricane Carter, who reportedly or allegedly was jailed for murder and or wrongfully accused of murder, spent a lot of years, decades in prison. And it tells the story of a group of citizens who take it upon themselves to take on his case and put it through to the court to expose a lot of the corrupt police and other officials that were involved in it. And look, it's a good tale. I won't say, obviously, at number 7, it's not the greatest tale of all time, but I think, again, unlike this is being a true story, I like it because unlike a lot of the others, I think they do get the story right. And I think even with this one, the actual fighting of it is actually quite good. I think Denzel Washington does a very, very good job. There isn't a lot of the boxing scenes in it, but I think the ones that they do have in it, I think Denzel Washington really does pull off being a real life boxer, which is always one of my, my main hates or main, or the main things that always piss me off, I suppose, when it comes to movies. They just can't get the fighting right. I think Denzel Washington does a pretty good job. So that is The Hurricane from 1999. Check it out. And I'm sure most of you have seen it out there, but on my list, number 7. Let's get to number 6. Again, another real life story. Who can forget this one, of course? The one and only, the greatest, Muhammad Ali. Stars Will Smith, Jamie Foxx, Jon Voight, who starred in The Champ, which I mentioned earlier. Released on Christmas Day in 2001. I remember seeing this at the movies, and I thought it was a really, really good adaptation, again, of Muhammad Ali's life. And it wasn't really his entire life, which I think was a good thing. They just focused on the key parts of his life, mainly capitalizing a lot on the George Foreman fight that took place in 1974. They didn't really go over a lot of his early life, if any, really. It was really starts around the early 70s when, the mid 60s. So they didn't really go into a lot of his winning the gold medal at the Olympics or going through the ranks. They sort of jumped straight into the Sonny Liston sort of fights, and then, of course, into Joe Frazier and George Foreman. But I loved the movie. Thought they did a really good job. I thought Will Smith was really good as Muhammad Ali. Thought Jamie Foxx was awesome as Bundini Brown, and Jon Voight as Angelo Dundee. So a really, really good take on the life of Muhammad Ali, and I've got it at number 6. Let's go into number 5, and yet another a movie based on a real life fighter. This is James J. Braddock, aka the Cinderella Man. Stars Russell Crowe as James J. Braddock, Renee Zellweger, is it Renee Zellweger as her? I think I pronounced that right. I don't know. As I have enough problems with the boxers these days, let alone the actors. But she plays his wife, and Paul Giamatti as his manager. Released in June 2005, and I just thought this was a great movie on all levels. I thought the way that they told the story. I thought Russell Crowe was very good as far as his boxing skills go. I thought Paul Giamatti as his manager was great. And I just thought they just covered everything. I thought they got the fighting scenes right. I thought they got the emotional part right. I mean, who can forget when he has to go to the boxing board with his hat to try and get some money from the officials who all sort of turned his back on him, and of course then beating Max Bayer for the world heavyweight title. It was I just thought it was a really, really good movie on all aspects, and I've got it at number 5, so make sure you check that one out. Number 4, I've gone for $1 Million Baby. Now this stars Clint Eastwood as trainer Frankie Dunn, Hilary Swank as Margaret Maggie Fitzgerald, and Morgan Freeman as the cut man Eddie Dupree. Now this was released in December 2004, and geez, talk about tearjerkers. This definitely was one. It tells the story of a female boxer. Now remember, this is 2004, so a long way before what we see these days with women boxers and MMA fighters. It was a little bit taboo back in the day, bar just a few women boxers at the time. And Hilary Swank does a great job as Maggie Fitzgerald. She works her way up through the ranks. She has an accident in the ring, breaks her neck. Struggles with her family, and again a real heart jerk, especially at the end. I'm assuming you've seen it, but I won't give it away just in case you don't know the ending. But again, very, very tear jerking type of scenes at the end of the movie. She breaks her neck in the main fight, and then she's bedridden in a hospital, and I'll leave it at that. But a great movie. I think it won Academy Awards and everything else, and very, very successful at the box office. It was on a $30 million budget. It made $217 million at the box office. So huge success for Clint Eastwood. He just has a habit of pulling these type of movies out, and just does an awesome job with these types of heartstring type of movies. So that is $1 Million Baby. Let's go down onto the final 3. This one might surprise a lot of you. I've just thrown it in there because look, it's not the type of movie that's on a level of $1 Million Baby with the budget and the Academy Awards and all that sort of stuff. This is just what they term a popcorn movie, a sit down, feel good, just laugh and enjoy the movie type. It only goes for 90 minutes, so it's not really long, but it's The Great White Hype. It was released in May 1996. It stars Samuel L. Jackson, Damon Wayans, Jeff Goldblum, John Lovitz, and Jamie Foxx. And it is just a piss take, I suppose, is probably the best way to describe it, of the boxing world. Samuel L. Jackson is obviously a takeoff of Don King. Damon Wayans, you could say, is a takeoff of Mike Tyson. But just the whole thing, it is just a parody of the boxing world. Now, what it's about is the world champion, it's the Grim Reaper Roper, James the Grim Reaper Roper, and he's a dominant champion, can't get any worthy opponents. He just keeps knocking them all out. Most of them are black. They're after a white fighter to get the people through the turnstiles and sell the pay-per-views and enter. I can't remember. Is it Conlon? I think his name is, or Conkin, or whatever those. It's a white guy they find to promote up as Irish, and it's just a really funny movie. Jeff Goldblum's great in it. John Lovitz is great. Everyone's great in it, and if you haven't seen it, make sure you check it out. That's The Great White Hype, my number 3 movie. And it's just, look, as I said, it's not a tearjerker like some of the others. It hasn't got the budget of some of the others. It's just a really good sit down, have a laugh, piss take on the boxing industry. So The Great White Hype comes in at number 3. We get down to the final 2. We're going to start at number 2 with The Raging Bull. This was released in 1980. It tells the story of Jake LaMotta, whose nickname was the Raging Bull. It stars Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci. Wasn't a big success at the theatre or the box office on an $18 million budget. Only made $23.5 million. So, but it has become more and more renowned through the years, probably on DVD and home video and all the rest of it. But I just thought, and it's directed by Martin Scorsese, that says a lot. But just a really good long movie, which a lot of Scorsese movies are. But a great job by Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci, who have teamed up, of course, in multiple amounts of movies over the years. But yep, it tells the story of Jake LaMotta. And you have to see it. Probably not much more to say except it's based on the life of Jake LaMotta and his career. So, but a really, really good movie. It's in black and white, which probably adds to the mystique of the whole movie. But I thought it was just an epic, a classic, if you will, movie. And I've brought it in at number 2, Raging Bull. Now we get to the number 1 movie, if I can spit that out, in the whole list, and I refer to, no surprise here, Rocky. Now, I've got the Rocky series, bar 1, and I think you can guess which one it is. It's Rocky 5. That's gone into the bin. So Rocky 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6, or Rocky Balboa is Rocky 6. So this franchise started in 1976 with the original Rocky, ended in 2006 with Rocky Balboa. And just to put it in perspective, these movies cost in total $119 million to make. They've made $1.27 billion through the box office. Even the first one, on a $960,000 budget, made $225 million. And the great thing about this, it was consistent right through the series. Even Rocky 5, on a $42 million budget, made $120 million. The highest grossing of all the movies was Rocky 4, which cost $28 million to buy and brought in $300 million. Now, just a little mini breakdown, if I will, of the Rocky movies from 1 to 6, 6 being the least favourite, 1 being the most favourite. I'm going to start at number 1 out of those movies. I think Rocky 3 is the best Rocky of all time. That cost $17 million to make, made $270 million at the box office. I've got Rocky 4 as the second best in the series. I've got Rocky 2 at number 3 of the series. Now, that was another massive success. $7 million budget, made $200 million at the box office. I've then got the first Rocky at number 4. I've got Rocky 6 at number 5, and Rocky 5, well, I don't even really want to mention that. But even that, on a $42 million budget, made $120 at the box office. So just the greatest boxing, well, not just boxing, the greatest franchise, in my opinion, of all time. You can count in the Star Wars and all those Indiana Jones and all those ones you want to, Jaws, whatever you want to throw in there. For me, the Rocky series is the greatest movie franchise of all time. And as I said, to rate them, Rocky 3, Rocky 4, Rocky 2, Rocky 1, Rocky 6, Rocky 5. If you ask me, just my opinion. So that is the top 10. I'll just quickly bring them up and we'll go through them. So we've got number 10, Requiem for a Heavyweight. Number 9, Bleed for This. Number 8, The Champ. Number 7, The Hurricane. Number 6, Ali. Number 5, Cinderella Man. Number 4, $1 Million Baby. 3, The Great White Hype. Number 2, Raging Bull. And 1 is the Rocky series. And I'm sure you're looking at that list saying, hey, hang on, how come such and such a movie isn't in the top 10? Just keep watching, guys, because there's a few surprises to come. All right, well, that is the 10 best movies of all time. Let's get into the 10 worst movies of all time. Let's see if you've seen and heard of most of these movies. Let's start with number 10. It is Snake Eyes. It stars Nicolas Cage and Gary Sinise. Nicolas Cage plays Detective Rick Santoro. Gary Sinise as Commander Kevin Dunn. It was released in August 1998. It tells the story of Nick Cage, as I said, the detective who attends a boxing event. Bit of a sleazebag is Nicolas Cage, but he witnesses there is a murder at the venue. It's a big conspiracy theory. I won't go into the whole thing, but a long story short, Gary Sinise is the opposite side of Nicolas Cage. He's his friend turned enemy. And it's just pretty much a work your way backwards to try and solve who the murderer was. And it just goes back through each pretty much phase of the event to piece it all together to see who is the bad guy. And yeah, look, it's a good movie if you don't really want to take things too seriously. It's just a fun type of movie. I think Nicolas Cage did a pretty good job in the lead role, but yeah, for me, the number 10 worst movie or boxing movie of all time. Let's go to number 9. This might upset a few people. I've got Rocky Marciano. Now, a lot of you guys and girls out there probably haven't even seen this movie, but it was released in May 1999 on Showtime TV, so it didn't actually go to the theatre. Stars Jon Favreau, who's well known now as a director, a lot of big movies under his belt, and an actor. But look, being a TV movie, of course, the budget mightn't have been too great, but I just thought the whole thing was a little bit cringe. I didn't think Jon Favreau, look, he probably pulled off the Rocky Marciano sort of build and maybe the way he spoke. He did it okay that way, but the fight scenes were horrific. And again, being a TV movie, they didn't really have the resources at hand, and I just thought it felt very, very flat. And I just would have thought that Rocky Marciano maybe deserved a bigger production than just a Showtime TV movie. But I've got that at number 9. Now we move to, and that is again obviously a real life or based on a real life event, being Rocky Marciano. On to number 8, which is another real life boxer. This time is Big George Foreman. Now, this was released in April of this year, 2023. It stars Chris Davis and, of course, tells the story of Big George Foreman, his 2 careers. His first career that ended in 1977, and then from 87 onwards, where he was a heavyweight champion, lost it to Muhammad Ali, of course, in one of the most well-known fights of all time. Had the 10-year layoff, came off, had 20-odd fights, lost an attempt at the world title to Evander Holyfield, and then won it in 94 against Michael Moorer. So, look, the story is really good. The problem with it is that it's very, very rushed. Now, I don't want to rubbish on a movie, especially about George Foreman. Overall, it was okay, but they just rushed through each scene. It was from one to the next. They didn't really, unlike the Ali movie, where they just slowed it down a little bit, made it a tour, I think it was over 2 hours, focused on the key parts and invested a lot of time and energy and money into really reliving those events. In this one, it just skipped across everything. And I just don't think they hit the mark. I think Chris Davis did an okay job as George Foreman. But, I mean, it did look, it was shocking at the box office. Had a $32 million budget and only made $6 million. So it just, look, as I said, for me, I thought the fight scenes were okay. But the main thing for me is it just skipped past everything way too quickly. Didn't focus on anything. Didn't really dig its teeth into anything of his career. And it was just pretty much a brush over everything. I really think they should have went down the Ali route and focused more on not just his whole life story. If they were going to, maybe they could have done it in 2 parts. But they should have done or went down the Ali approach, where they started maybe just as he won the world title, and then to when he suffered the loss to Jimmy Young in 77, and then came back for the Moorer fight. So focus maybe more on winning the event and then the Ali fight and then the Moorer fight down the track. But it is what it is. But yeah, for me, the number 8 worst movie of all time when it comes to boxing. Number 7, yet another movie based on a real live boxer. This time it's Roberto Duran. I know this is almost blasphemy, rubbishing on Roberto Hands of Stone Duran. This was a 2016 release that starred Edgar Ramirez as Roberto Duran and Robert De Niro. Also had Usher in it as Sugar Ray Leonard. Look, I just thought, again, they rushed through the whole thing too quickly again. I thought the fight scenes were horrendous. I thought the acting was horrendous. I'm not sure why Robert De Niro would have put his name to this one. I think this was sort of going through a phase where we really didn't have a lot of movie choices and was just appearing in all sorts of different movies. But for me, it was just a really, really poor rendition of Roberto Duran's life. And I feel bad, because if anyone deserved a really good telling of their life and career, it is Roberto Duran. I just don't think they hit the mark in this one, and it was an absolute fizzer at the box office. And for me, the number 7 worst boxing movie of all time. Now, number 6, and it features not Roberto Duran, it features Robert De Niro. Again, this time in conjunction with Sylvester Stallone. Now, again, a lot of you thinking, oh my God, how can you have a Robert De Niro's Sylvester Stallone boxing movie at number 6? But for me, look, I get where they were coming from. It was released on Christmas Day in 2013, and as I said, starring Sylvester Stallone, Robert De Niro, and Kevin Hart in there as the promoter. Look, I get where they were trying to go with this one. I mean, on this list, Sylvester Stallone, number 1, Robert De Niro, number 2, as far as the best movies of all time. So I get where they were coming from, trying to put the two together. It tells the story of two boxers who had a really bad rivalry back in the day. They've now, of course, gone on in life. They do I think it was some sort of AI type of rematch type of thing, and they got into it and it created a bit of buzz about their rivalry from years ago. So Kevin Hart, as the promoter, gets them together 20 or 30 years later to try and reenact what happened all that time ago. But again, I just don't think it hit the mark. It's sort of comedy, it's sort of drama, it's a sort of bit of everything. But I think at the end of the day, it just, again, didn't hit the mark. And I just think, even though I saw where they were trying to go with it, and why wouldn't you get Sylvester Stallone and Robert De Niro in a boxing movie together? But for me, it's a number 6 worst boxing movie of all time. And I don't know, I wouldn't even call it a popcorn movie. It just doesn't come close to, garnering any emotion or whatever you might want to call it during the movie. They went through the estranged son thing and the estranged girlfriend wife sort of thing, and anyway, it's a bit of a mess if you ask me. So I've got it at number 6, Grudge Match, featuring Sylvester Stallone and Robert De Niro. Now this next one I know is going to upset a lot of you out there, and I can probably understand some of it, but I'm going to put it in at number 5. It is the Creed series. Now, this could have even been higher on the list for me. I absolutely hated this series. It was released in 2015. The second movie followed in 2018. The third movie was in 2023 this year. Stars Michael B. Jordan. Now, this franchise was an absolutely massive success. The problem with it is that I think all 3 movies suck. Now, I'm going to explain why before you all fall off your chairs. I think the storyline of all 3 movies is okay, especially the first one. I really like the way they went with the illegitimate son of Apollo Creed. The second one, I love the storyline with Ivan Drago's son. And the third one, with the old mate from high school or whatever it was, his old running buddy in the streets, was sort of okay. But I liked them, especially the first 1 and 2, as far as the storyline goes. The problem with it is that Michael B. Jordan just sucks as a boxer. He just cannot pull off being a boxer. Now, I don't know whether he didn't put enough work into the training of becoming a boxer, but I thought his acting was okay. But the fact that he looks ridiculous as a boxer, it is just cringeworthy. Okay, so he looks like some guy who, and if you're in a gym, every gym's got 1 or 2 where they think they're okay at boxing, but they're just not. So coupled with the nowhere near getting close to looking like an actual boxer, I think they missed the mark as far as what makes the Rocky series great. Now, what I mean by that, if you look at what makes the Rocky series just legendary, it is the fact that the fight scenes are just fantastic. They really are, especially number 3, which was my number 1 of all time. The way, the work that Sylvester Stallone put into being an actual boxer was just unbelievable, and he pulls it off. Coupled with that as well, or added to that, is the training montages, which were just, everyone that's seen the Rocky movies walks out and they're buzzed. The training montages in this were just ridiculous. They really were. And when you've got Michael B. Jordan attempting to look like a boxer with whatever rap music going on in the background, it is, for me, it is the true definition of cringe. And if it wasn't for the fact that there was 4 more in front of this, I would have had it a lot higher. Now, it was a massive success, as I said. These movies, the first one on a $40 million budget, made $174 million at the box office. Creed 2 had a $50 million budget and made $214 million at the box office. And number 3, on a $75 million budget, made $275 million. So pretty much to break it down, on a $165 million budget, it made $663 million. And that's great. I'm happy for all concerned, all the actors and the investors and whoever else was involved in making the franchise. That's great. You all made money. But I think as boxing movies, I thought they sucked. So for me, number 5, and they're lucky they weren't a little bit higher up the list or lower on the list, however you want to look at it. But again, it just comes down to they just missed the mark as far as what made the Rocky series great. The fight sequences, which were great, these were shit. And the training montages in Rocky, which were great, in these, they were shit. So there you go. Creed series at number 5 for me. Number 4, this is another one probably bound to create a bit of controversy. It is Southpaw, which I've got at number 4, released in 2015 in June of that year. It stars Jake Gyllenhaal, Forrest Whitaker, Rachel McAdams, and 50 Cent. It was based on, well, not based on anything. The lead character is Billy the Great Hope. Forrest Whitaker plays his trainer manager Titus Tick Wills, I will say. And it's a story of a world champion whose wife is accidentally shot by one of his rivals. He loses everything. He loses his daughter. It's a redemption of getting her back, getting his title back, getting his money back. And look, the storyline itself, I think, is quite sound. I think it's a really, really good concept for a movie. I think everything about the movie is great as far as the the way they do it with the commentators in the proper arena with the proper crowd. They've got the proper belts, and look, it is realistic as far as what goes on in the background or behind the scenes of a world champion boxer. That's great. The problem is, like the Creed series, Jake Gyllenhaal as a boxer absolutely blows. He really does. He just looks. I've got to laugh because he looks so comedic. If you've ever seen, I'm sure you have the Ronda Rousey clips of her attempting to shadow box in the ring, and you almost have to just stop and check yourself because it looks that ridiculous. That's what Jake Gyllenhaal looked like in this movie, and that's why I've got it so low or high, or however you want to call it, on the list at number 4. Because as good as the movie could have been, the storyline and the whole concept is awesome. The problem, as I said, is Jake Gyllenhaal just has no boxing ability at all and just does not pull off being a boxer. And his acting, I think, was to be questioned as well. So I absolutely hated this movie. I think this whole Southpaw thing too, if you don't know, well, if you're watching this, I would hope that you do know, being a boxing fan, Southpaw and the whole switch at the end and whatever. I think the whole thing just didn't hit the mark at all. So I've got Southpaw at number 4. I mean, the whole build up to it was great. The promotion, you can see there, the poster looks really cool, but it just failed miserably for me. Down to the final 3. We're almost there. Let's get to number 3, and is Play It to the Bone. This stars Woody Harrelson as Vince Boudreau and Antonio Banderas as Cesar Dominguez. That was released on Christmas Day in 1999. It tells the story of 2 boxers that train out of the same gym who were, well, acquaintances. Won't say so much friends, but acquaintances. There's been a late pullout on a Mike Tyson card in Las Vegas. The only 2 boxers that the promoter get on short notice are these 2 guys, and they've got to get there quick, and they jump in a car and they drive to the fights together to fight each other. And the story is they get there and there's no crowd at all. And by the end of it, such a great fight. Everyone's going off and the crowd's going nuts and end up being there. And a little bit of redemption for these 2 guys who are club fighters. But look, the fight scenes were horrendous, or the acting was questionable. It was a dismal flop at the box office, and all around just a pretty ordinary movie, if you ask me. But again, look, it's one of those movies, if you're not expecting too much, then it's an okay movie to sit down for an hour and a half, whatever the hell it went for, and you've got nothing better to do with your day. It's okay. But if you're looking for a classic or a blockbuster, this movie certainly ain't it. Down to the final 2, and I'm sure this one again will upset a few because it's ranked on a lot of lists that I've seen in the top 10 of the best movies, but for me it's the number 2 worst movie. It is The Fighter, released in December 2010. It stars Mark Wahlberg as Mickey Ward, Christian Bale as his brother Dickie Ward, And it tells the story, of course, of the life and times of Irish Mickey Ward. I think a lot of boxing fans will remember him for his epic clashes with Arturo Gatti. Doesn't actually have a lot to do with this movie. It's more about his whole career rather than just the Gatti fights. But again, I think the storyline is okay. Of course, it's based on a true story, so it's pretty hard to get that wrong. The problem with it is that Mark Wahlberg, oh my God, is you thought Jake Gyllenhaal and Michael B. Jordan were bad. I love Marky Mark or Mark Wahlberg as an actor, has been some of my favourite movies, but trying to pull off being a boxer. His acting was actually okay in it. Christian Bale was okay, a bit cringy at times, but the fights themselves, the fight sequences were absolutely deplorable, diabolical, if you want to call it even. And that's for me. It's probably you see the theme in these movies that are okay storylines, but when it comes to the boxing side of things, if you don't know anything about boxing or you're not really a major boxing fan, whatever, you can probably go to these movies and forget about it. That's probably the first thing I look at is how they pull off the fight scenes, and this is probably the worst of all of them. Is the fighter, and as I said, as a story, it's okay. I thought Amy Adams was good as the partner of Mickey Ward. And Mark Wahlberg's okay, Christian Bale okay, but the fight scenes and the major thing that did turn me off a lot is at the end of it they pretty much asserted that Mickey Ward won the world title in a classic case of redemption in England. It was for the IBU title, I think it was. I don't even know what that title is, let alone know any of the champions or where it has in the standing things. But if it has standings in the world of things, if you've got the WBC and WBA and all the rest of them up here, it is down here as far as it's probably even not even on the chart or the map, the IBU. But that's how they sort of tied the whole movie up at the end, was that he won the world title by winning the IBU world title. And I'm not having a crack at Mickey Ward here, by the way, because I've seen him a lot of wars back in the day, full of admiration as far as the Gatti fight goes. But this movie, oh my God, is probably, well, it is the second worst movie of all time. Now, you're probably thinking, geez, after all those movies there, what could possibly be number one? Now, I've got to say before I release this is probably one of my favorite to watch boxing movies, but it just so happens to be the worst boxing movie of all time. And a lot of you out there probably wouldn't have heard of this one, let alone seen it. It is called Honey Boy. Now, it was released in 1982. It stars Eric Estrada. Of course, we all know Eric Estrada from back in the day in Chips. He stars as Rico Honey Boy Ramirez, winning the title against Tiger Maddox, who's loosely based, I think, on Marvelous Marvin Hagler. It's the story of him coming from the ghetto. He's Puerto Rican, the love affairs and getting ripped off by managers and having fixed fights, and then the ultimate redemption against Tiger Maddox. Look, if you're after a movie with no strings attached, and you're probably a bit like some of the others there, like the Play It to the Bone I said earlier, if you just want a fun movie to sit down, I actually enjoy watching the movie, but it's very cringe. The fight scenes aren't overly great. They don't even, I don't think, even try and hide the fact that it's no good. The makeup is shocking, but it's a classic popcorn movie. It's a fun movie to watch, but it is horrendous as far as an actual boxing movie goes. So I've got that at number one. So let's go from number 10 down to number one. Number 10, I've got Snake Eyes. Number 9, Rocky Marciano. 8 is Big George Foreman. 7 is Hands of Stone. Grudge Match comes in at number 6. The Creed series is at number 5. Number 4 is Southpaw. Number 3, Play It to the Bone. Number 2, The Fighter. And number 1 is Honey Boy. So there it is. There's the top 10 best and worst movies of all time, just in my opinion. And just before I finish off there, just a couple of movies I wouldn't mind seeing get made based on the boxing or real life boxing. I think that would make great movies. I think the Billy Collins, Louis Resto fight from back in 1983, I think it was, should be made into a movie. If you're not familiar with that one, check it out on either a YouTube or Wikipedia, whatever. It is when Louis Resto, they took padding out of his gloves against a young up-and-coming prospect in Billy Collins. the fallout of it all, the tragedy of it all. I think that would make a really good movie. I'd like to see also one on Mike Tyson. I know they've done a tally movie on it, and there has been talks that Jamie Foxx would play Mike Tyson in a real life boxing movie. I really hope that comes to fruition on a big budget. I don't want to see just a thrown together movie like some of these other real life movies that I've covered. I'd like to see a blockbuster featuring Mike Tyson, because you talk about a life story that deserves all the budget and attention and the work put into it. I think it is a Mike Tyson movie, full-on blockbuster movie. So let's hope that happens. I think Sugar Ray Leonard would be a pretty good one to make a movie about as well. A lot of ups and downs in his life, and also Manny Pacquiao. Again, that should be a blockbuster movie. To win 8 titles over 8 divisions and coming from the streets of the Philippines, and I'd like to see a big screen adaptation of Manny Pacquiao. No cuts and budgets and that sort of stuff. Big budget movie about the Pac-Man. I could even call it the Pac-Man, the story of Manny Pacquiao. So there it is. So there it is, guys. There is my list of the top 10 and top 10 worst movies of all time as well. Let me know your comments down below. I'm sure there's a bit to get your head around with all the lists, and I'm sure you're going to have a lot of you out there will disagree and agree with a lot. But again, it's just my opinion. So put your comments down below. Let me know your opinion, and until next time, we'll catch you then.